Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of AI in the Classroom Daily. I'm Dan Cogan-Drew, and I'm here to help us all make sense of how AI can be used with intention in the classroom, especially in a moment when a lot of decisions are being made about how to position AI relative to the role of the teacher. And that's what we're going to talk about today. An article that was published yesterday, March 18th in EdWeek. The article is called Why Teachers Shouldn't Offload Their Busy Work to AI. Using AI to streamline the teaching process is a grave mistake. And it's written by Daniel Buck from the American Enterprise Institute. And I wanted to talk about this article because I think it's an important question about what to offload and how and when. And I think the way that we construct the question and the way we answer it is vitally important as to how we frame our thinking around AI. So Buck's core claim is that teachers shouldn't use AI for what he's calling busy work, because that busy work actually is the craft, the reflection, the planning, and the email drafting even. And this is an argument about what the real craft of teaching is. And this is a similar point that Dan Meyer made, though he, I think, would contend that the art of teaching is something different than what Buck is describing. What Buck is saying is that outsourcing this kind of work, and we'll get into what he means by that work, is teaching the same way a machine doing an athlete's reps would atrophy their muscles. It's outsourcing the wrong work. So I think this is a point that needs some discussion, because how we characterize the work of teaching and how we characterize the role of AI has everything to do with the lens through which we're going to examine AI as a technology, AI-based tools, and how we're going to position them. And I think getting this right, getting this wrong, getting this closer to right is important, because to mischaracterize it will misposition the technology, and we'll lose some opportunities to make good use of it, and we may also cause our students and our teachers to suffer the consequence of misapplying it in the wrong way. So I do think that Buck is onto something when he talks about, for example, writing a parent email. And I'll just read a brief quote here. He says, "When I was an assistant principal, I had to write many sensitive emails about poor behaviors, special education, accommodations, restroom accidents, bullying, fights, abuse, and plenty more. Switching to a tab with ChatGPT open almost certainly would have made my job easier, but it would have made me a less effective leader and administrator," end quote. And he also brings up an example here of creating items for an exam. And he says, from a teacher's perspective, if a teacher uses Grok to draft questions for an exam, they neglect the contemplation that undergirds a well-sequenced, thought-out unit or activity. I would say neither of these is really wrong. And when we're using AI, as I've said in a prior episode, for example, when Google suggests feedback to a teacher to give to their student, there's a strong risk that student will receive feedback more in Google's voice than their teacher's voice, because it's so easy for the teacher to approve Google's suggested comments, and those suggested comments come to embody the voice of the teacher, and we get the cart before the horse. So I think there are tasks where thinking actually is the most important thing, the work that you don't want to outsource. But then Buck goes on to invoke an analogy in athletics. And I love that he went to athletics, because I often find, as I was saying earlier, that athletics is a great way to ground my thinking in how to conceive of a teaching and learning situation. If I take it outside of the classroom, I can reorient my thinking. If I think about what would the analogous behavior be like on a ball field or on a tennis court. And so what he says is, why not let the machine run the routes or complete the reps so athletes can focus on the more important work of competing? Don't let a machine do the athlete's reps, because the reps are the training. And I think that's where the argument slips a little bit here and the analogy doesn't hold, is I don't think that's the way that we would be conceiving of applying, call it a machine. Let's say the AI is a machine in this case. I want to offer a different example here, because it's not to ask the machine to do the reps. I used to play tennis. If you've ever taken a tennis lesson, especially if you've taken a group tennis lesson, maybe you've taken one with 5 or 6 or 7 other participants. There's one court, there's one pro. The pro is at the net and serving up shots for you to practice your ground strokes. Now, without the aid of a machine, the pro can serve up those ground strokes. You'll get in line after you hit your shot and then run to the back of the line. Let's just say that in an average minute of that, you might get 5 reps. If you can hustle quickly through the line, you get 5 reps per minute. Now imagine another scenario. You have, let's say, 6 tennis courts and you have 6 ball machines. And the ball machines are serving up ground stroke practice to 6 players at a time. You still have a pro, but the pro is rotating amongst the courts. And the pro will sub in, turn off the machine and feed some ground strokes, give some tips, turn the machine back on, and move to the next court. Over the course of a minute, a player on one of the courts using the machine is going to get 10, 20 reps per minute, far more than they would get otherwise, because the time that they would be spending standing in line waiting for the attention of the pro is going to be spent practicing the ground strokes. And the number of reps has everything to do with the opportunity to improve. And I think that's what's getting reversed in Buck's argument here is he's thinking first about the coach. And what I want to suggest here is that we can position the AI to think first about the athlete or the student writer in this case. That what's possible with AI is that every student at the moment they are looking for feedback to advance the next line of their argument, their next piece of writing, they can get that feedback if the AI is positioned in a smart, pedagogically sound way. But otherwise, they would be queuing at the teacher's desk, just the way the players are queuing, waiting for the pro to serve the ball. They're waiting for that feedback. They're waiting to find out if they're advancing their writing in the right way. And I think that's a sort of misconstruction of how the AI can best be positioned here. There's, let's say, 2 categories that are being collapsed into one. There's a category where the thinking is the point, right? Where you're sequencing a unit, you might be writing a hard parent email, designing an exam question. And I think that's a valid point that he's making there. That's good brain work. You don't want to offload that cognitive work. But then there's the case where the tasks where the output is the point and the process is really just friction. And I think Jeff McCoy, when he was an assistant superintendent, gave an example of having to write a letter to the file when you're an administrator. A teacher is chronically late and you have to document this. Spending time that you could be devoted to the real emails that you need to be writing to families, to write a letter to the file is not a good use of your time. That's just something that is a pro forma act that you need to accomplish and isn't the same level of cognition that's required and shouldn't take up an equivalent amount of time. So this is just one example, but I'm sure if as you're working in schools, you can think of examples that are not good uses of your time and how the use of the AI can help optimize those so that you can spend the time thinking in the areas that really merit that. I would love your thoughts in the comments here. What are some examples of these 2 classes of work where the thinking is the point and where the output is the point? I think that's really the question. So Buck raises this question, should teachers offload their busy work? And I'm saying that's not quite the right question. A better question would be, which tasks are the reps that are going to build your craft, and which tasks are the equivalent of just standing in line to wait to hit the ball? Is the value in the output, or is it in the process of producing it? That's a vital question, and I think we have to think very carefully about our use of AI as it answers one or the other question. So, my thoughts for today. Please let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you again tomorrow. Thanks for joining.